Hey, Adam.
Yeah,
Do you live in a house?
I do.
How many doors does it have?
2. Yeah.
In and out?
In and out. How many doors does this pod cave have?
One. It serves as both the entrance and the exit. Ooh.
I'm Adam Maness.
And I'm Peter Martin.
You're listening to the You'll Hear It podcast.
Daily jazz advice and counting of egresses and ingresses.
Yeah, and maybe, I don't know, is this thing up to code?
This is not. I know you got super nervous when you asked that.
Well, I don't know. For people who haven't seen the pod cave from the outside, which is probably most of y'all.
Most of the world.
It is, I mean, if you think it looks shoddy just right here.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think it actually looks shoddy the way we have the camera angles.
Yeah.
And the suaveness and sophistication that we bring to it, like we don't think much of that. But to our loyal listeners and viewers, first of all, the listeners don't know what we're talking about.
No,
they think we're at, I was going to say Studio 54 in New York, but that wasn't the studio, actually.
No, yeah.
They think we're at the world's finest studio because we have a wonderful production team here. We have some great microphones. We have wonderful spin drift.
Oh, my gosh. He's still trying to get this endorsement.
Yeah, wait, hey, you are drinking it now.
I do. I love the lemon.
Oh, the lemon.
The lemon has less. Lemon only has 3 calories, and we got 1 carb. And so, as you know, the keto thing.
What a great diet in which you can't even have 3 carbs. Except certain times of the day, you can go down to Pappy's Ribs and have 7,000 carbs.
Oh,
7,000 calories.
It's so great. It's so great. But we shouldn't slag off the pod cave too much. Our intern Ryan spent a whole
10 minutes.
10 minutes last week.
No,
it looks good in here, man.
It does look much better. We have the sound baffling is back in the house.
It smells worse, but it looks better.
It does,
Yeah.
right.
All right, anyways, what are we talking about today? Oh,
We're talking about architecture.
we're piggybacking up on from yesterday's episode, number
Because at
7.
the end of the episode, I don't know how many folks make it to the end, because that was a long episode. But we threw out some good info.
It was very good.
Yeah, if you're really interested
so.
in some of the more tactical stuff that we get into, things that you can apply. I mean, look, you still got to do the work. We're not giving you a silver magic bullet. But these are really, I think, things that are like, we always talk about stuff that we say or that comes up in conversation with each other here at the podcast, and how much this has helped us in our practice, where it's just a reminder of things for us to go back. And so we really do try to, practice what we actually do. We practice what we preach, but we also have tried this stuff out for a while. And a lot of this comes from not only us, but talking to really good musicians, jazz musicians specifically, that have applied these different techniques or things that we've observed in them. Like I always go back to Roy Hargrove and Joshua Redman, these great musicians that were, my peers, they still are, that when I was young and I started seeing I was so interested in how do they look at the world? How do they practice? Because I wanted to find things to do, because I didn't have a podcast, jazz podcast when I was growing up. I don't know about you. You're a little younger.
I did not have a jazz
millennial
podcast. No.
But I mean, but it's the same thing. It's just sort of passing along the information. And
Mr. Millennial.
You're literally the world's oldest millennial. We established that. We went to Wikipedia.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. So anyway, so what we wanted to focus on was what the last kind of piece of the puzzle was yesterday about improving your soloing, and that is this connection between the arts in general, but specifically architecture. That genre, is that a genre or
it
a
is
field?
A genre, yeah,
field of study, field of adventure, and all that kind of stuff. Like how we can kind of think about architecture and apply it to improving our jazz playing. And what I love about this is that, of course, architecture is a physical art. It's a physical manifestation that we can see that we're in. I mean, look, technically the pod cave is architecture. Did you know that?
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying. And
that's what you're nervous about, because it's a little shoddy.
It's pretty terrible. Yeah.
But I mean, architecture is something that we're always in. I mean, it's very utilitarian. It's made to be used. And I think that a lot of times for playing jazz and for our soloing and stuff, we need to do a little more of that. So it's a good application. Plus, we're always going into different buildings, especially if you travel or just wherever you live. Like, you can always look at something differently. Most of us are going into buildings and not ever thinking about it, And if you just kind of open your eyes and look at it, it can be fun. And then you can maybe have some ideas on how you're going to structure your solo, how you're going to maybe structure some things in your practice. There's a lot of ways to look at it.
For sure. Yeah, sorry, I just had to update the card here, but on my little phone, because I still don't want to use my laptop. Yeah, I know.
Wait, listen. Do 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 do. The world's smallest violin. Sorry, playing "My Heart Bleeds for You."
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. No, so I agree. I like this idea. I mean, I liked it so much when you started talking about it yesterday that I thought this does deserve its own show. So, so you started yesterday by talking about egresses, conveniently.
Yep.
About, at a certain point you have to have a door, no matter if you're building some kind of like elaborate crystal palace, or just a basic, 2-room house.
Yeah.
It has to have a door.
Yes.
Usually.
Yeah.
Or an elevator, some kind of way in.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's the same way to think about it during your solo. And I love these kind of analogies with other forms of art, because it really, for me, it makes me think in a completely different way than I think how I might have been taught, or how I even observe other musicians. Like it just kind of is a different perspective on things like how to get into your solo, how to, like, when I think of a door, I don't think of like how I get in.
Right.
I think of how I let others in. And that's something, just that little psychological twist about how I can begin my solo and let the person into this building that is, this solo that I'm about to create, I think is brilliant.
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head there, is that, like, this is not about, an architect does not design a door that's for them or for the owner. It's for other people coming up to the building.
Right.
So, like, too much we're thinking about how do we want to get into our solo.
Totally.
And that really doesn't, it doesn't matter. Now, there's all different ways to do that. Just like, so then you can start looking at architecture. I was just at the Roby House. I don't know if you know about the Roby House. It's up in Chicago.
No.
Frank Lloyd Wright, one of his prairie style, early prairie style, beautiful home.
I love a Frank Lloyd Wright.
It's great, man. And it's a museum, and it's owned by it's right by the University of Chicago campus, and they do a great tour there. I was there years ago, but I got to go again this summer. But, Frank Lloyd Wright, especially with his residential architecture, he loved to do this thing of the door being kind of hidden. I mean, not totally hidden, but a little bit like on the Roby House, it's sort of not where you would expect it. You can see it. I shouldn't say it's hidden, but it's a little bit obscured, and you have to walk a little bit back in the property, a little lot further than you would expect. And then it's just not, it's sort of diminished a little bit in terms of the overall architecture. It's not like a grand door, but you can see it though. There's a way to get in. It's not like you're going to walk around for an hour and say, I can't get in this building.
It's not confusing to find how to enter the house.
No.
But it's not expected either.
It's not expected, yeah. And you do have to, look a little bit. But then when you come into it, and look, I'm getting a lot of this. I'm not a genius in architecture, but I'm getting this from the tour guide who was really good to explain this. But the idea is that once you come in this door, and it's a small door, for a man of my frame, it's perfect. For you, it's so small that you might even be doing a little bit of
a little duck with my groceries at the end of the
might
day.
be ducking a little bit. But apparently, Frank Lloyd Wright was a man of average stature, as am I, and he was known to have a little bit of a Napoleonic concept. So he would do some of his doors to his height.
I mean, hey, he's the architect.
Yeah,
You can do what you want to do there.
Wait, we were saying for the soloing. No, you can't. You got to do it for the listener. Oh, anyway.
No.
Gotcha. No, but you go in this doorway that's small, not like Hobbit size, but on the smaller side. But then when you go in, the entryway is not particularly huge, but it feels really grand, and it kind of open, like he's really thinking about what you're seeing then and your first impression of the house.
Right.
And so because you have this sort of sublimated doorway, and I think about his jazz solo, like it's almost like you're underselling at the beginning of your solo. You're giving that entry, but you're not playing all your stuff. You're like playing some really nice stuff, but then you kind of let it evolve out to something. And I would think that that's a really high level of thinking about architecture, and then architecture of your solo also.
And just understanding, I mean, this is something we've been talking about all day today in different contexts, but understanding the journey of your listener, like understanding where they are in the journey. Because, it's funny, like, I like this idea of we're taking ourselves out of this, because when you think about your listener's journey in this experience, they don't have the same experience with this music as you probably do. Right. Not that you have to simplify it or cater to it, but understand that these first moments in the solo, when they're coming through the door, you're setting up what's happening after that,
right?
Big time. You're setting up expectations. They found the door, they're into the solo. You found this way, and now what you play at this point is that entrance way where you're setting up the experience of the structure,
right?
Right. And so even if like, and I'm not saying like you have to like predetermine what this is going to be at all, and you shouldn't.
No, the drama and unexpected is great. That's
for sure. But recognize that what you're playing there in those first few seconds, those first few measures, can be used later.
Yeah.
To mess with expectations, to add novelty, to change it up.
Yeah.
Or to be used as material to draw from.
Well, and I'm just thinking of this, entryway, analogy and how we apply this to jazz. We're talking about great ways to do it, and Frank Lloyd Wright. Let's talk about some things not to do.
Oh, I like
we
that.
love doing that.
Love doing
in
that.
the words of Christian McBride, let me show you some stuff not to play.
For sure.
Okay, think about the house with the beautiful golden door, it's gaudy and grandiose, and everything's great, and it's right in the middle. Bam, you come up, big double doorway. Then you go in, and it's kind of a crappy house on the inside. So don't oversell your solo if you don't got anything to play afterwards. Or don't put all your best materials on the outside of the house, and then you got nothing left for the inside.
Yeah, that's right. The drama is key to this, so you have to have somewhere to go.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why when people start talking about, if you go into like a class or something with a teacher in a combo situation or whatever, like they'll often say start out by not playing a lot, take jabs,
Right.
And that's because it for a beginning level, it gives you somewhere to go.
Yeah.
You're good enough that you could start off busy and still take the listener somewhere, right? But you're still not going to give them what would happen, 1 minute, 2 minutes into your solo,
And it still needs to, I think in order to get away with stuff like that, even if you can do it, is very much, we can learn from architecture too, in that the door can be somewhere unexpected. You can have some crazy stuff going on, but then the form and the connection stuff, you have to pay even more attention to.
That's right.
If you're not doing a standard, here's the door in the middle and there's a window here, what people expect, then that's fine. But you got to make sure that there's a way to get there. And then when they come in, they're not tripping as they get in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Because a lot of architects have kind of outsmarted everybody. And I mean, at a basic level, architecture, you're not supposed to be dangerous, right? You're not supposed to be you walk.
It needs to be a structure that's going to,
it's supposed to be safe, unlike this pod cave, right?
Well, I'm so glad you brought up Frank Lloyd Wright, because there's another aspect to his architecture in particular that I think is very very analogous to playing a solo, and that's the way he uses the surroundings of a structure as part of.
Yes.
Because you're when you're inside the house,
stuff now.
you're looking out, and
Right.
so the way he frames the nature around or the surroundings of what's around, I think is very similar to when you're inside your solo.
Yeah.
I mean, we say it all the time, listen, but make sure that you're setting up what's happening around you. Make the drummer sound good.
Yeah.
Interact with the bass player, whatever it is. But you need to be aware of your surroundings, even if it's sometimes I'll think about okay, I'm in a fairly big hall. Mm-hmm. So I probably can't get as small as I would get into a 50-person club when everybody's right there. That kind of thing, I think is really good to think about and be aware of as you're soloing.
That's great. And I mean, I think, we're talking about being aware of your environment, the physical space, aware of the personnel, the other musicians on stage, aware of the audience.
For sure. Yeah.
And, very much architecture is Frank Lloyd Wright was, a specialist in this idea of being a part of the landscape, the prairie landscape at first, and then when he moved out to the desert and the Arizona, but being a part of nature. And so that's sort of the environment maybe for us in terms of playing. And then houses and buildings are made for people and for visitors to come in. And so, it's the audience too. That's part of the environment of what we're doing.
For sure.
And should have some impact at some point on how we structure our solos, how we play this music, We have that advantage to be able to do some structuring of it as we go. Unlike music that's totally predetermined in terms of what the notes are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really it's really interesting to think about. I mean, I think it's something that you just sort of develop naturally when you're performing a long time, but these analogies are so crisp to these two seemingly different worlds. It's great.
Yeah. No, I think about it. I the more I've gotten into this, the more I think about this. like, I don't know that I necessarily think about it as I'm soloing, to be honest, but I definitely think about it like when I'm listening to things that I've played.
Yeah.
I think about it when I'm practicing, and really just when I'm sort of conceptualizing what soloing is, composition for sure. And I just believe that the architecture, which is kind of like almost like the timeline of what a solo would be, is very important. And I mean, I think that where we can really draw inspiration from physical, architecture that we see is just in the variety of it. Right. The different kinds of things, these specific ways, but also just when you see something like, wow, this is so unusual. Does it work? Does it not work?
Yeah.
And then, how can I apply that to my playing?
That's right.
Some
That's
fun
great,
stuff.
Man.
Yeah.
We did it.
We did it. Made it through another day. Another day, another dollar. Free podcast. Oh, no, but you can join and support us.
How?
We haven't been hyping that enough.
We haven't been hyping enough.
And because we haven't, we've got a little bit of fall off of membership.
Oh, no.
Nobody's left still.
Yeah.
But we haven't been having these screaming hordes coming in like we did at the beginning.
You're talking about You'll Hear It Premium.
I'm talking about You'll Hear It Premium.
Yeah. Go support the podcast. Go to you'llhear.com. Become a premium member. We have exclusive episodes at the piano with PDFs available.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
But do it for that, but just do it because you want to support us too.
Yeah, we're trying to keep this thing going.
We're trying to keep the pod cave elevated, you know what I'm
I
saying?
mean, you were going to say from falling down, but that's already happened.
Exactly. We couldn't quite do that. But yeah, no, it's fun. We have a nice little community of folks that's growing over there.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Fun stuff happening.
Cool. Well, until tomorrow.
You'll hear it.